Hello, everyone. Thank you for visiting my channel, Educational Norm. I work as an educational consultant, which means that I have the opportunity to interact and visit with many teachers across Ohio and beyond. Those interactions have driven me to tell their stories and their ideas on education. The goal of Educational Norm is to provide an informational network that focuses on positive aspects of education, the people preparing students for the future of our world. Join us each week for a new interview, and please subscribe and share the channel with others that you think may enjoy the program. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Today we have Hallie Madewell from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. She has been a teacher now for 5 years in Rutherford County at Wilson Elementary School. She currently teaches third grade in math and science. And part of her story is that she did not start in education. So we're going to find out a little bit more about her here shortly. But welcome to the show, Hallie. I'm going to say it right every time. How are you?
Right. Good. How about you?
Good. We are distant marriage relatives, and it's just good to finally put a face to a name and a voice to the name. So I'm glad you could join us today. And basically, what this is all
Likewise.
about is to try to find out about teachers around the country and find out what you do. And we haven't talked to anybody in Tennessee yet, so you're the first. And I love Tennessee.
Great.
Nashville's my happy place, so it's a good place to go. We try to go at least once a year just to Nashville, so it's a fun place.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's crazy down on Broadway. I still haven't made it all the way through the whole town. I get stuck on Broadway. So anyway, sidetracked again.
Easy to do.
It is easy to do. I love music, so it's you could just stay in one place all day if you really wanted to. I digress. I am sorry. So here we go.
No,
So,
no apologies. I do too.
so tell us a little bit about your journey into education and the pathway that you took there. Any inspirations and anything that you may have that give us a little bit about your background.
I started out as a finance major and worked in banking and doing retirements and CDs, all kinds of different things. And we had our first child, and I decided I wanted to stay home with him. And then fast forward 2 years, we had another one. And I started getting them in preschool, wanted to socialize them and let them learn the routines of what a school-ish looked like. And so once my youngest was in, my husband gave me the nudge to go back to work. And so I love children. I always have, and decided to apply at the preschool and got a job teaching there. I worked with 1 year olds, and it was great. But once my youngest went to kindergarten, he kept nudging me, okay, like let's see what else we can do. But having children, yeah, especially young children in school, it's hard to find jobs that go with those schedules. And since I enjoyed the preschool, I thought, well, everybody needs a substitute. So I went and got licensed to substitute and fell in love with it. And I found myself there every day at the boys' school. And it was perfect because when they're out, I'm out. And if I didn't want to work that day, I didn't have to work. So the principal at the time came to me and said, Madewell, what are you doing? He was like, you're here every day. And I was like, "Mhm, yeah, I am." And he was like, why don't you go get your license? And I just laughed at him and I said, because I'm almost 40. No, like who wants to go back to school at 40? So, um, but that stayed in the back of my mind. And one of the teachers there at the time, and it happened to be my son's teacher, she was a first grade teacher and she got a concussion and she was going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks to recover. And it was right before Christmas time. And he came to me and said, look, we really need somebody to step in. There's a shortage on subs. Would you commit to helping us? He was like, you've been in and out of the classroom. He said, I've watched you teach. I feel like you're keeping up with the lessons and all the things. So I said, sure, why not? And within that amount of time, I just felt this pull. I was like, I think this is where I'm supposed to be. And just did some praying on it. And next thing I knew, Christmas break, I was registered for school. So I went to WGU, the Western Governors Plan, because I needed something that would allow me to do my coursework from home. And I visited our local university here, Middle Tennessee, and it wasn't for me. And I knew that because my boys were still first and third grade at the time. And so what I loved about that program is that you had to take a minimum of 4 courses a semester, and a semester there was for 6 months, and you paid one flat fee. However, you could take as many courses as you wanted to. So I am not a procrastinator. And I was like, okay, I got this. I continued to sub and I was able to, because I subbed and because I had spent 3 years subbing prior to that, I was able to go through some of those courses without even having to really, I hate to say, of course I studied, but they made so much more sense to me because I had experience in the building.
Mhm.
And I find that that is so much more than the actual text itself.
Mhm.
The hands-on being watching other teachers, watching what might work in one classroom actually doesn't work in the next. And that was the best experience that I had. And then luck would have it, I got through, it was a 2.5 year program. I did all the coursework in a year
Oh,
while
gee.
subbing full time. Yeah, I wasn't joking. I was not
Oh,
playing.
gee.
I was not playing around. And then I did my student teaching the next fall, and I got to do it at Wilson Elementary. And it was just one of those things where I was like, I don't want to be at any other school. I don't, of course, it was also all I knew, and I don't love change when it comes to things like that. But nonetheless, it was just a great experience. And when I graduated, there was a interim for third grade, a lady on maternity leave. They gave me that, and then COVID happened. So that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great way to come into the education field.
Oh yeah, so we shut down, and then over the summer there was a couple of teachers that decided not to come back, and my dream was to go into second grade, and there was a shift in principals at that time, and the new principal coming in was our assistant principal, and I adore her as well. And she called me and she said, "Hey, there's a job in second grade." And I worked with that team a ton and I loved them, which was huge to me because we all know that the people you work with make everything.
Hmm.
You don't, if you don't get along, you can't, it's not going to work. So, and I knew that I worked well with them. So it was such a blessing in disguise. So I started in second grade during COVID, spent 2 years, no, 3 years in second. And then she asked me to move to third, and I was distraught. I was like, third? That's the big testing year. And she was like, I see something here if you trust me. And I said, I do trust you. I'll go where you need me. I'll go anywhere but kindergarten. So um, just because like mentally, kindergartners are babies, and I just was like, I'm not there. But all that to say, we just had a good giggle over it. And she just knew I loved math. And she said, you'll be math and science, and I think you'll do great. And plus, the beautiful part of that was not only did I get to get some of my old students, but I knew the education that they had had.
Hmm.
And so I got to see, ooh, where are the gaps that second's doing? Like, what do we need to do to get them here? And to see their growth, not only like academically, but in their maturity was really cool. So this has been my second year in third, and she was right. I love it. I like it better than second. I wouldn't want to go back to second now. I love this age. So, anyways, that's where I am. So,
Maybe in another 2 years, you'll go up to fourth grade and then maybe fifth grade. And
I draw the line at the middle school. Draw the line.
so, what is your certification in what grade levels are you able to teach?
I'm actually K through 8.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Very good. And then,
Typically, here in Tennessee, it is like a preschool through third or a kindergarten through fifth. But WGU is based out of Utah, and because of that, I got certified through 8. I don't ever want to go really above fifth, just because I like the younger ones, and I currently got a middle schooler, and no thanks. So,
see
and
now,
he's sweet, but still.
well, so you and I are very similar. I went to school and I really wanted second grade coming in. So I had a elementary certification and I came out with a K-8, but they couldn't find me a good placement in elementary for my student teaching. So I ended up going to seventh and eighth grade science classes instead. And I fell in love with that. So I ended up being in middle school almost my entire career. And I would
Well,
never want to go down to elementary now. So I think part of it is where you had the best experience and that's where you stay.
mhm.
And that's great. So
And it's hard to be open to something that you think that you're not going to like, but if you trust your administration, and I do, I really trust her. And so I was like, she sees something that I don't, and I'm just going to have to roll with it. And if I don't like it, then I'm just going to tell her at the end that it's not for me, but here I am.
there you are. So you
Yeah.
mentioned in that opening that you are on a team of people,
Mhm.
and you said that you're teaching math and science.
Mhm.
So tell me how that breaks down. How many people are on your team? And because in Ohio, a lot of our elementary are self-contained, especially probably up until
Right.
about maybe fourth or fifth grade. So tell me about your team and the responsibilities that fall within that team.
Sure. What's pretty interesting is actually when I was in second grade, my last year there, we decided to departmentalize even in second grade. What we found is we all knew that we had our own strengths, and we were just talking about it. Like, I'm a math-minded person. I love it. It's my jam. I've taught reading. I can teach reading, but I don't feel like it's where I'm the strongest. So my co-teacher and I, we were talking. She's like, well, I love the phonics. I love this, blah, blah, blah. So we decided, and not only did we feel like the kids got the best part of the teachers, but they got a change in face. And so did we, because we do have those students that are harder than others. And it was nice to get that break.
Hmm.
So currently in third, we have 6 teachers, 3 for ELA and social studies, and then 3 of us for math and science. So obviously, we start with group 1, and then we have them just a little bit longer because they are our quote homeroom.
Hmm.
So we start with them, and then we have, when I tell you, a jam-packed schedule, and I think a lot of this has to do specifically for third grade this year due to our retention law in Tennessee. We get all of our core before lunch. We hit it all. And then after lunch, they have special area, they have recess, and they have RTI. So
Okay.
it is like jam packed.
Wow.
So it's
Very
like
good.
4.5 hours of straight teaching. So,
Okay. So what's the Tennessee retention law?
okay. So that has to do more with English language arts. So there is a reading retention law, and I can't give you exact specifics just because, I mean, it changes all the time. But basically, if they don't make a cut score or a composite score of a 50 on Ames Web, or a certain score in reading on our TCAP, which is
Mhm.
our Tennessee capstone, or achievement tests when I was young,
Right.
they are flagged because we were seeing around COVID, right around there, a lot of our children struggle to read, but not only struggle to read, they struggle to comprehend it.
Hmm.
So they have a retention law, meaning you're not going to pass the third grade, and it carries over into fourth if you don't make this cut score. If you don't make that cut score, okay, we're not quite going to hold you back, but you have to go through. We have a tutoring service called Power Hour, and we offer summer school specifically for those students. Then, if they don't pass it again, we reevaluate that, and that's when it moves into fourth. And I'm not real sure, the red tape there, but.
Right. Well, we had here in Ohio the third grade reading guarantee, which is this very similar.
Mhm.
And we've evolved it over time, and I do believe it's not as big as it used to be, but that very similar to what you were discussing. You could be held back if you didn't get a certain cut score. So that's pretty similar. Um, how long are your classes in the morning? You said that you're jam-packed. So how long is a block that you have?
So I start my whole group lesson at about 7:45 for math. Depending on the lesson, that might run 45 minutes to an hour. And then we use that time for small groups. Some children leave for intervention at that time, and then they come back. Then we do science around 9:15, and that lasts anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. And then we will swap
Got it.
classes. And then I'll do the whole thing again.
Okay, very good. Everybody has a little different version of block, so you see the same kids every day, but in a
Oh,
different.
yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, that's when I hear block. I've been part of the block where, you see them every other day, you see them 90 minutes for a semester, then you don't see them again. So there's a lot of different blocks out there. I just was trying to make sure I understood your block. Um,
Yes.
so one of the things that I try to ask people when they're doing this is, what are some of the lessons that your kids just absolutely love, that every time you've done it, you just see a glow on their face and they're engaged and they're happy? And I saw your room during Christmas. The Grinch was there. It was awesome.
Yes.
So tell me some of the lessons that you have that the kids just love doing every time you bring them out.
Third grade is the big year for multiplication, right? And division. Seeing that light bulb go off for them. I mean, we start the year out with that. We start building it by understanding, relating it to related addition, arrays, things like that. But that is their first question when they come in. Are we going to learn? They'll call it times. Are we going to learn times? And I'm like, yes. And I'm like, you actually already know it. And they'll be like, how? And so I'll pull out, I love keeping them interested. And I know a lot of people are against candy, snacks, food, whatever, but I'll bring out like a handful of Skittles and I'll place them on my desk and put them under the camera. And I'll be like, okay, well, 3 rows of four. And I'll like, get out your whiteboard and pretend they're Skittles and draw 3 rows of four for me. And then I'll relate it to them. I'm like, well, you just did 3 times 4. And I'm like, how many is that? I say 12. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do another one. And I'm like, okay. And then I'll give them some Skittles and let them manipulate those and move them around. And then, we work on fluency throughout that. And then once they see the different properties of multiplication and understanding the different ways that we can solve them, they're mind blown. And then comes the division part. I'm like, well, if you know this, then you can do that. And so I feel like for third graders, that is their biggest goal. That is the most exciting thing. We're getting ready after Christmas to go into fractions, and there's so many great things we can do with that as well. I think they just feel like they're learning big kid things other than
Right.
addition and subtraction. So,
That's a great
yeah.
one. And I have found in every school that I worked with, fractions always seem to be a very difficult thing for a lot of kids.
Oh, yeah.
And when I trace back some longitudinal data from other grade levels, it comes back to they never really understood fractions to begin with. So
Correct.
how do you teach fractions that might be beneficial for others that are listening?
Well, it's only my second year in third grade, but we do introduce them into second grade. But every group of kids, they're just different. So what I do one year might not work for the next one, but what I have found, I love fraction bars, especially when it comes to learning what's equivalent, what's the same, because that is hard for them. And
Mhm.
again, if they can't relate numbers, like what times something equals, if 2 times 4 is 8, and being able to know the equivalency, it's hard for them.
Mhm.
So visuals for fractions are huge. And I start out by understanding, what does a whole look like? What does a half look like? And I even have fraction magnets on my board to show the equivalencies of those. And they're mind blown by it.
Mhm. Yeah,
And I give them those tangible items to hold on to and look at and play with.
it's one of the first times they're dealing with a concept that could be very foreign to them, and
Uh-huh.
that concrete manipulative that you're giving them definitely will help them understand what you're talking about. But it's still a struggle for a lot of kids. So I'm
Oh
sure that
yeah.
it's an ongoing thing. I've worked with algebra teachers in high school that say they can't do fractions. So, it's an ongoing thing.
They're hard, and I will be very honest with you. I mean, it's been a hot minute since I had done some fractions, and I had to go back and reteach myself, especially because we do a lot of number lines, and fractions on a number line, that's hard.
Hmm.
So I try to put myself in their shoes. What is relatable to them? And I mean, I'm from the South. I love to cook. I love food. I'm like, okay, every kid loves pizza. Let's use pizza. I'll draw a pizza or I'll make one on a PowerPoint or something. And a lot of times I think their biggest struggle is understanding what part of the fraction is left. What part did you use? And what part did we not use? That is very hard for them to grasp. So sometimes I'll be like, okay, what part of the fraction did you eat? What part is left over?
Hmm.
So sometimes those simple words work. And I tell you, like wording is huge for third graders because sometimes as adults, I'm like, I will go to my coworkers and I'm like, I don't know what else to say. And I'm not ever I always have room to grow, and I'm never too proud to be like, I cannot get them to get this. And I'll simply ask my coworkers, like, what words are you using? And maybe it's just one word is all I need to change. And I think that is where working as a team has been so beautiful. The math team, we are so close, we're great friends, but we're also very honest with each other and we help one another.
Hmm.
And I think that's important for students too, to see teamwork amongst adults as
Right.
well. So, and I'll be like, go ask Miss, Kincaid or Miss Corrado, like, ask them what word they use. I'm not opposed to that. So,
That's a big advantage of having teams is when you start using consistent vocabulary, the kids get it. And
sure.
and to go back to the point of fractions, I read recently that McDonald's tried to launch a third pound burger, but
Oh,
it didn't go over well because people thought it was smaller than a quarter pound.
oh my gosh.
So we still have a lot of work to do on fractions.
Well, yes, and again, there's that verbiage, the whole quarter and third and fourth. They're like, what? I'm like, just never mind. Well, we'll keep moving.
Right,
But
exactly.
you tell them like a quarter, okay, we'll think of it in terms of money. If you have one quarter, how many quarters does it take to make a dollar? And they'll say four. And I'm like, but you only have one. So sometimes the verbiage does line back up.
Well,
It's just getting the click.
and then if you're teaching time and you say it's quarter past, then it's
Right.
15 minutes. So now they're all confused again.
That's true. And we also teach time, so it does, you
Yeah,
know.
that's a common. I get that answer a lot. What's quarter after 15?
Mhm.
Okay, so what's a quarter of a dollar? 25? That doesn't make any sense.
And I get it.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned your team and the issue of consistency, and we talked before that we started recording about how big your school is. How
Mhm.
much time do you spend as a school, planning to be consistent from grade level to grade level and teacher to teacher? Do you get a lot of time for that?
I will say my admin is really great about doing her best to allow that. Now, she has guidelines she has to meet as well.
Hmm.
Sometimes, and I'm sure every teacher can attest to this, we feel like our planning time is taken from us.
Hmm.
Often IEPs, 504s, behavior meetings, a conference with a parent, whatever it may be. However, when we have in-service days or like we'll return on Monday and that is a teacher work day, our admin is really great about allowing, getting what she needs to get done pretty quick in the morning and allowing us to plan the second part of the day. As far as during the school week, the math team, we plan at least once a week, and then we meet as a whole grade level if needed, talk about test scores or something big coming up that we are doing. We try to do that. So I would say solidly we get together once a week and talk about what's coming, and that lasts about 45 minutes to an hour. So
That's actually a lot of good practice to have it once a
mhm.
week, and not everybody does get that. It's hard to do. It's really hard to do when time is such a premium. And I don't
Mhm.
know how much in your union contracts that you have built in professional development days as well, because I know that those are limited in public schools around here. Private schools are a little bit more flexible, but public schools, you get maybe like 4 days total where you can really sit down and be with teachers. Do you get something like that as well?
If I'm doing the math correctly, once a semester, I feel like we get one a semester.
Okay.
We don't get credit hours for those as far as,
Mhm.
professional development. Um, but we do like Monday will be one and then Tuesday is one. And then I feel like we actually have another one after Martin Luther King. Uh, I feel most certain. But
Okay.
I feel like these days are more work days, and then that one is an actual professional development day. But again, we don't get the hours or anything for those.
Well, in a lot of the schools that I've been in, we've done, big professional development days, but especially at the beginning of the year, you have to meet all the mandatory AED, CPR, all
Yes.
those ones, bloodborne pathogens that you have to do. So there's
Mhm.
not a lot of time is taken up by those mandates that you have to do, and very little time is given to curriculum or, aligning curriculum or talking about what you're going to do in class with other teachers. So even that time, I'm sure, is just regulated so much because of what's required.
Correct. And most of those our admin tries to get done at the beginning of the year. That first
Mhm.
3 or 4 days that we get before we meet our students, that is allotted to those. I call them the fluff PDs. They're really not, but the ones that we have to do.
Right.
Um, but I feel like our team, our specific third grade team, we are very good at planning, like getting in, let's get it done. And because we're on the same page, we just don't argue a lot. And it's kind of, we bring everything to the table. Hey, I want to do this. If you want to do it, great. If you don't, that's fine too, but I want to share it with you. And we do a lot of incentives together as a math team. So, for example, we just wrapped up multiplication. And so we did fluency test every week. And so we gave them like a cut score, let's just call it 75%. And we would allow them, if they made below that, to retake it. But at the end of it, we built what we called like a candy charcuterie or a candy salad. And we literally had, because we did 0 to 12, we did 12 different candies. And based on their scores, they got to come and, like, of course, everybody got it, but it made them work for it. And they were so excited. But we did that as a team, as a whole. So every third grader got to be a part of it. So I feel like planning things like that, we were very good at.
I think I would be very successful in your room because there's a lot of food involved.
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
That's great.
it's my love language. So
Every time you mention something, there's been pizza, there's been cookies, there's been candy,
yes,
it's recipes. It's all good. Yes, I'm ready for it.
yeah.
I'm ready for a visit next time you have anything.
Oh yes, come
Funny.
on down.
So the one thing that we talked about also was the size of your school. When I went to the website, I saw you have quite a few teachers per grade level, which sort of surprised me because a lot of the schools around here, I see one or two, possibly three teachers per grade level, and you have many more, it seems like. So, what's the size of your school and how does that translate into getting to know your students?
Okay, yes. Well, it's varied depending on the year. Our county has done several rezonings within, since I've been there, probably two or three.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we can kind of go between 600 to 800 students. Most grade levels have about 6 teachers per grade level. We do have a pre-K class. There are 2 teachers there. I believe we have 6 kindergarten. There's one grade level that has like one, and there's 1 or 2 that are self-contained, but for the most part we have about 6 teachers. An average size classroom is anywhere from 18 to 22, and of course the older grades like fourth and fifth, they might have up to like maybe 24, but that's kind of a stretch. So I've never really had any issue getting to know my students. However, I do feel like that is my personality. Not everybody feels this way, but I am, and my co-teacher, both. My son actually had her, and this is what I adored about her. But when we get our children, we spend those first few days sitting in a carpet, getting to know them, getting to understand them, filling out little papers like, I want to know you. We send home, I still, even in third grade, send out a questionnaire to my parents because if I don't know your kid and I don't know, I'm not trying to be nosy, but if I don't know what's going on in their life, I'm never going to reach them academically. They've got to feel loved. They've got to feel safe in my room. Some people don't need that connection with their students. I do. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that comes home with me. Um, I'm tearful a lot because they become my children. And I tell them, like, for the next 8 months, I'm your mom at school and I'm going to love you like I love my own children. And you're not going to like me a lot. And I might not like you a lot, but I'm always going to love you. And we're going to be nice to each other and we're going to build that relationship. So I have a total of 35 students between my 2 rooms right now. And I can probably give you not probably, I can tell you anything you want just about those kids because that is my number one goal before I teach them anything is to love them, know them, and understand them.
I love that. And relationships
So,
are so important. I think that
mhm.
the way you just described it is a great way of understanding that love is permanent. Like has issues. You have those issues
Yeah.
along the way. And I think that if I remember correctly, when I was looking at your website, your school also talks a lot about just being a good person and good manners
Yes.
as a priority, which is one of the first times I've seen that. But I also chalk that up to Southern hospitality. Um,
Yeah.
it's one of those where if I'm in the South, I expect people to say yes, ma'am, and that's actually
Mhm.
one of the rules. You say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir when being addressed.
Correct.
So
Yes.
with that idea, I want to know how you end up in finance because that is not a personal uh, profession like teaching is. So, is that part of what drove you into teaching? Is that relationship piece?
You know, I'm going to be very transparent here. I wanted to graduate quickly and I loved math. And I went to my advisor and I was like, hey, what can I graduate with first? And she said, well, because I did start out in business and my dad was a banker. So that's kind of what I knew. And I knew I liked numbers. Um, I had originally wanted to teach, but I just was like, "Ah, I don't know. I don't really want to do the student teaching and all of that. And there's no money in it. And then um, I just have always loved babies and children. And then I thought, okay, maybe I would love being a baby nurse, like after the babies are born and they're in the nursery. And I science was not my jam. And so I unfortunately, as a young adult, if you even want to call me that, as a older child, I let one or two little things scare me away from what I really felt. And I would just wanted to be done with school. So in all honesty, that's why I picked it. I could graduate. I liked numbers. My dad did it. My brother was in business. My sister was in business. So why not? And I rolled with it. And I found really quickly that, and this is no offense, but it's a man's world. And that did not work well for me. And I think I was the first I worked for a mom and pop, a very prevalent mom and pop bank in Franklin, Tennessee, which was very prestigious. And we had a lot of Titans players. And I was one of the first women that pushed back on them. I'm like, no, that doesn't work for me. Like, I'm just as smart. I can do all these things. And after having my son, I was like, this is not what I want. This is not, I'm not into these types of goals. I don't want to do that anymore. And I knew I couldn't be the mother that I wanted to be to my boys going back into that. And so being a mother also showed me how much I love being with children. And when I went to the preschool, it was that light bulb kind of went off. And then somebody pushed me to do it, to step out of that comfort zone and come back into where I'm supposed to be. So we'll
Well,
see how long I last.
and you ended up probably getting more school than you ever thought you would ever have to do
Oh,
because
yeah.
because you had to go back.
Yes.
That's funny. Um, One of the things I also noticed when I was looking at your website at your school is you have almost all women teachers.
Correct. We do.
You have a few males, like I think in technology and maybe PE, if I'm remembering correctly.
So our behavior specialist is male. He is new, and he is fantastic with our students. He's been 20 something years in behavior, I believe is what he told me, but he's really great. And our boys really connect with him, which is great. And then, yes, we have a young PE teacher in his 20s, and of course, they all love him. So, but we did have a male teacher, and my son had him in third grade. And then he moved to our art, and then he became a pastor. But, you don't see males in elementary that often. And when you do, the boy moms obviously want them, but because
Right.
I specifically remember requesting him because I was like, I think this would be good for my oldest, and he did. He loved him. So
Well, and that's something in a lot of schools. You're right. Elementary school teachers, male teachers are rare. And
Mhm.
we were noticing at one of the schools that I taught at that it was very possible that they never had a single male teacher until they came to seventh grade. So
Oh, yeah.
so do you see that as an issue when it comes to how boys react to the females? Do they struggle sometimes, or do the teachers struggle understanding boys? Because boys are a different breed, especially if you're not a boy mom.
That. So I don't even know that it's more of a gender thing, but sometimes I think, and this is no offense to anyone, but I think if you are a parent, your style and way of teaching is different. I am known as one of the stricter teachers. And that is because I'm a boy mom. I have two boys, and not only do I have two boys, but I have two teenage kids. So and that is what I tell, and I tend to get some harder boys, and it's probably for that reason. And I'm okay with it. I accept the challenge because I will often tell them, you not gonna win. Like I know I've got your number. And sometimes I walk out of the room and I'm like, oh my God, they're winning. But but I actually struggle with the girls. And I feel like that's maybe because I don't have girls and I don't like the drama and the crying and all the things. So I really think it has to do with what you're used to. And I do feel like parenting drives a huge role. And in the way I teach, it drives the way I run my classroom because I often tell them I don't allow this at home. And if my kids aren't going to do it, then you're not going to do it. I'm not Cinderella. I'm not cleaning up your mess. Those types of things. And I think too, I'm old. I'm like the old fart on the block. I'm like, some of my coworkers are 20. I'm like, oh, I could be your mom. So I also have to be aware that I need to change my mindset sometimes too. I will tell you, really struggle with this new generation of parenting and the whole like not saying no, and that's negative, and we let our kids feel big. Okay, but there's a time and a place for that. And that's been very hard for me. So I do like listening to the younger generation because sometimes they can open up my eyes to something that maybe I'm not seeing or that I'm struggling with because I'm old and set in my ways.
Well, I've been doing a lot of reading, and a lot of times we don't, as educators, don't look at the research. And that whole self-esteem movement, if you look at the data, really was not as positive as we thought. So
No.
it's something that it's again, if you were raised in that, like this generation of parents were, then they're going to use a lot of that same strategy on their own kids. So it's going to be what it used to be times two because now it's the second generation of it. So it's interesting.
Mhm.
But you're not that old, Hallie. I'm older, just to let you know.
Like, I just feel old when I'm working with some, 20-year-olds, but no, or like, we'll bring up something like, don't you remember? Like, no, I was a baby. I'm like, not necessary to say that. So,
Yeah. Well, this will make you feel better. I ran into one of not the first group I coached when I came out of and was out of college to the high school football team. They invited me to their 50th birthday party.
oh, yeah, that'll hurt your feelings.
Oh my gosh. You're 50? That's not good. That means I'm over that. That's
Yeah.
not good at all. So yeah, don't feel bad. Um, you mentioned having two boys and a family and
Mhm.
all these things going on outside of your life or outside of school and how you bring it home sometimes, which I think every teacher does. We cry about other people's kids more than sometimes our own. How do you maintain your work life, home life balance? What do you do to keep your sanity?
It is a it's a work in progress every single day. Um I love the art of teaching. I really truly do. And in fact, after school, 4 days a week, I private tutor at my house after school.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I do. Sometimes I'll do 4 or 5 1 hour sessions. And so I go home, I leave work, I come straight here, I do that. I have both of my children are active in sports, and I have a husband that travels for work. So it is a lot on me. But and I wear my heart on my sleeve. And so like if my students are bad or having a rough day, I hate to use the word bad, but if it's been a rotten day and they didn't obey and they just didn't get it, and I come home and I'm mad, and then I've got to tutor and I've got to do this, I'm like, hold on. Like, remember why you're here. Like, why are you here? What's important? What can I leave? And one of my coworkers, she's new to our school within the past 2 years, and she's really opened my eyes to some things. You know, she often says, sometimes it's just not that serious. Like, what you're upset about, is it really that serious? Okay, so your kids did crappy on this test. Is that really a reflection of you? Are you really not a good teacher? Like, think about what you're taking home. And sometimes you just need to close that classroom door and leave it. Now, I'm getting better at things like that. The home lives of these students, I have worried a lot over Christmas break, I'm not going to lie to you, but there's nothing I can do. Worrying and bringing it home to my family is not helpful. And so I have tried to just really let them know that I love them when I'm at school and that I think about them, and I hope that they've had, give them a hug, and and give them all that I can, and then come home and then take a little time for myself. Just a little. Like I said, I love to cook. Sometimes it's making my boys a fresh batch of cookies. Sometimes it's just going out to my garage and getting a workout in, or literally just going in my room, closing my door, and telling everybody I need 30 minutes. Just don't talk to me for 30 minutes, and I'll promise I'll come out a better person. But recognizing that and being able to voice that is very important, because I feel like women, specifically mothers, we carry a lot of weight. Um, and then add in being a mother to 35 other kids, it's heavy. It's heavy. And so just finding that time to decompress and leaning into your like-minded peers and being honest,
Mhm.
but reminding yourself it's just not always not that serious. And that's hard.
Being around positive people definitely helps.
Oh yeah.
And
I don't do
it sounds like you have
negativity.
a great team to be able to do that.
Yes. And we're very honest with each other. And sometimes I I want that honesty, and I don't ask if I don't want it. And sometimes I specifically don't ask because I already know.
Mhm.
Like I said, my best friend is a teacher in Wilson County, and sometimes, I'll call her and she just listens sometimes. And sometimes I just need to have a lot of word vomit and get it out, and then I'm good. So,
Right, right.
because
I
if you're
love
not in education, it's hard to understand because
right,
most people are like, oh, you get summers off. Oh, stop it. Like, you don't even know. So,
right, exactly. It is different. My wife is not in education, and I'll talk to her about something, and she goes, "What are you worried about?" They just don't grasp a lot of the
right.
emotion that goes along with teaching, and it is a love of your kids that really you struggle with when the things go poorly. Do
There's
is
some
the
pride in it too, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah. If you're not taking your job seriously, then it wouldn't be a big deal. But you love your job, you love what you do, you take it seriously. It
mhm.
matters. So you do take your time, and you want to be the best that you can be every day, and that's not easy to do
No.
because when you have 35 eyes that are looking for you to be the positive leader, and you're having a bad day, it's hard to put on that face sometimes.
Yes, it is.
But we
But
do.
I find that honesty with children goes a long way.
Mhm.
If they know that I'm upset about something, and I'm very open with them. I'm like, you look, you've hurt my feelings, you've made me mad, and so it's going to take me a minute. You need to give me a second, or I'm really proud of you. I struggle really bad with migraines, and they know. Like, I'll say, hey guys, migraine today. I'm not feeling well. And they're so sweet and sympathetic, and they work really hard, and just building that, I think, honesty with team members and your students. They might be 9 years old, but they're humans, and
Right.
most of them have some empathy. So
Well, I was going to say, if you say that in a middle school where you have a migraine, there will be a kid that will drop his book on purpose.
yes. Hmm.
It's just the way it
Absolutely.
is. It's perfect. Um,
Yes.
so tell me, I'm interested now in Rutherford County because it sounds like your demographic might be more on, I won't say impoverished, but on a lower side of the economic scale. Is that, or is that not true?
It depends on what part of the county. Our county is huge.
Okay.
We're very big. Now, where I am, we are more what we call a little small country school. We have a little bit of everything. We have a small like Hispanic community. We do have some lower income families, but not like you see more in the city schools. Um, I think for me, I just really take to heart the few that are struggling. I
Mhm.
would say I have a good handful of poverty in my classroom, but it's not what you would see in the inner cities.
Okay.
No.
Uh, every school is different, and I know that. I just was trying to get a better feel for, what your makeup is. So you said it, you love teaching.
Mhm.
What's the next step for you in your teaching career? What are you striving to do? If you could design a PD session just for you, what would it look like? What are your goals moving forward?
That's a very interesting question. I feel like the pendulum is going to have to swing at some point in education. The big elephant in the room for me is behavior. It is a problem. And like I said, this new era of like only positive talk, I feel like there is no healthy fear in education anymore. And that is not on my administration. That is on, especially in the state of Tennessee as a whole. Children don't do their work. Oh, well, can't take their recess because they need to move. You can't make them walk the track. You can't make them turn it in. You can't make them do anything. And even as young third graders, they know this. And their parents, unfortunately, are making excuses for them. And that is my biggest struggle. And again, like we're gonna have to figure this out because teachers are leaving left and right here. They are sick of it. They're sick of the parents always getting their way. I mean, we have rules, but then they get bent for this kid or whatever. I'm sick of the excuses for the ill behavior or the lack of responsibility. Uh, Back when we were children, your homework came before your baseball practice and you studied before that game or you didn't play the next time. And the excuses that I get, it's exhausting. So I want to stay in education to see my children through high school and possibly through college. I want to stay. I fear that if behaviors and responsibility doesn't change, I don't know where that's going to lead me as far as in a classroom. Now, I do feel like I will always tutor, and maybe once I retire, I will substitute or something. But I really, until that shift comes, it's really hard for me to say what I want to do. I want to see a positive impact and I want some accountability.
You are not in a boat by yourself. I hear that a lot, and it's not just Tennessee. It's almost everywhere I go and people that I talk to. I told you at the beginning, this is the seventh state that I've been able to cover in this. And I hear that pretty consistently that the behavior has really changed a lot since COVID, um,
Mhm.
especially with some of the younger grade levels, just because they are not used to social settings. They're not sure how to interact with kids on a daily basis. And obviously having the phone and other things in front of them all the time is another part of that process because they
Mhm.
can go into their own world for almost the whole day if they wanted to or if they were allowed. So that socializing and building relationships is much harder for this generation, which is what teaching is. It's all about
Mhm.
relationships. So that's a starting point. How many of your kids have access to that kind of technology already in third grade? Do you know?
Oh, I would say most of them.
Yeah.
And that is where I have some really I am very crystal clear during parent teacher conference because I have sat on both sides of the table. I have been in the conference about my children, and it's hard to hear some things sometimes. And I have very well behaved, I have very good students as children, but there's still always something to be said, right? It's very hard to deliver news to a parent, but I can tell them hard things academically much easier than I can about their
Mhm.
behavior because it frustrates the fire out of me to hear a parent say, well, I just don't know what else to do. Like I tell them no more and they do it anyways. Well, I'm sorry. Who's the adult here?
Right.
And I've said that, like, you're the adult, and sometimes like a punishment is not it's a punishment for you too. But sometimes we have to put our devices away and we have to give them that attention. And I think the adults are just as guilty as being glued to these phones and tablets and work, but we have got to step away and we need to go back to these family dinners and we need to talk to our children in the car and just be present. I mean, be grounded, be where your feet are, and be in the moment.
I
So,
love that, being present and enjoying where you're at. A lot of people that I've talked to always want to be somewhere else, and that's not the way to live life by any means. So I'm glad to hear you say that.
yeah.
And I think that's a great place also to sort of start wrapping this up, because we're getting into that deep philosophical what education should be. And I don't know if I'm ready for that yet.
Yeah.
It, it's supposed to be lighthearted. I don't want to get too heavy. So I'm not ready for heavy. So with that being said, is there anything else that you are looking forward to in the last part of this year with your kids before you get to send them off to the next grade?
Oh, yeah. I mean, as far academically wise, yeah, we have some big things coming up. Like I mentioned, we did the multiplication, the big candy salad. So next up, we're going to be doing division with that. The same type of thing. It's, there is a stigma with fluency. Some people are for it, some are not. Um, to me, the proof is in the pudding. We have excellent test scores. I feel like we need to make sure that our children understand different ways to solve things, but sometimes rote memorization is just the way to go. I mean,
And
if you don't know 3 times 4, yeah, let me show you a way to figure it out. But I'm trying to get them excited about learning it, not just memorizing it, but learning it, understanding it, and being able to be fluent with it. So with that, we do a big ice cream sundae. Here's that food again. So we have 12 toppings, and part of it, or not 12 toppings, but we have 12 items. So you earn your bowl, your spoon, you earn your first scoop, second scoop, third scoop, and then your toppings. And I build this huge ice cream chart, and then they can put like stickers on it when they get there. And based on what each student can do, maybe their test looks different, but everybody gets to see their own success. And when they build that Sunday, I mean, they are pumped. And we stretch it out towards the end of the year, and it's right after testing. So it's a huge accomplishment for them. So I look forward to that. And I look forward to testing being over. So
right, I think we all do. I
yes.
love that. Again, the more food, the better. So you're
Yes.
right on track. And since I'll look at your testing dates online, and I might show up for the Sunday.
Yeah, please do.
That would be
It's a
great.
lot of fun.
That's great. Well, I'd like to thank you for the great conversation today, Hallie.
Yes.
Um, Wish you the best of luck for the rest of the
Thank
year
you.
moving forward, and with your kids as well. Um, I do have to share a couple things with you after this, because I was thinking of some things that might be intriguing to you.
Yeah.
But for everybody that's watching, please subscribe to this channel, Educational Norm. And if you have any questions about what Hallie's doing or what I'm doing, you can email me at norm@normpotter.com, or go to my website, structuredcreativityconsulting.com. And until next week, be kind, be professional, and find solutions. Thank you very much, Hallie.
Thanks for having me.